Welcome back to Sam's Project Bench. Today I'm going to be running through another trimming tutorial. I'll be showing you how to do embossed trim panels. Stay tuned, remember to like, share and subscribe if you haven't already. I hope you enjoy the video. Okay, so this is the basic set of equipment we're going to need to do our job today. And we start from this side. You've got our sprayable contact adhesive, our spray gun. That's just the cheapest one I could find at the local hardware store. Square, straight edge. I've got some 3mm foam, black just automotive vinyl. Found some stencils on Google, printed them off, and underneath is the board that we're going to trim up and doing some embossing. So what I've decided to do today is a flame with a Chevy badge embossed into the board. So all this can be done at home. It's a very simple way of doing this. It's easy enough that anyone can do it from home. So, alright, we'll also need our pencils, texture, knife, scissors. I've got a washable marker. Then we got our tape measure and just a few snips. So they're the basic tools that you will need for the job today. Now you don't have to get the big tin of that. A spray can of strong contact adhesive will do. Be wary of what spray adhesive you use. Sometimes the cheaper spray adhesives, they never truly make that strong bond you need. So I prefer to use these big tins of contact adhesive, and because I do a bit of this, it's also the cheapest method for me. So this is what I recommend. So I went onto Google, found a couple templates. This is just the same measure of that, just blown up a bit bigger, and I erased some of the black in the center because it was overworking the printer a little, but I found that even too small. So what I have done, got the same image and stretched it over 2 pages. So that way it's a little too big, but we run it this way, it's pretty much just the right size. So idea, and have the flames that way, and I'll be putting the badge somewhere down there. So to achieve this, you're going to need yourself some cardboard or some something fairly thin to be able to cut our templates out of. So I'm using a couple different methods here. So I'll be using the cardboard to actually lift the Chevrolet badge emblem out, and I'll be cutting the flames out of the foam. So the flames should have a softer edge, and the badge should have a sharper edge, which I think will tie in nicely together. Alright, so what I'm going to do now, I'm going to attach my templates to the cardboard, make a rigid stencil, and then I'll start cutting out my templates. Righto, we've got our templates. Now, not the neatest cutting, but that should be fine. These are just the negatives, so these aren't actually going to form the embossing on the board itself. So the theory is, this is going to be the negative it's going to be a lowering effect for the flames, whereas this is going to become a raising effect with the cardboard. I'll show you what that means in a second. Might not make sense right now, but what we're planning on doing, we're going to be covering this in foam. We'll mark out this flame over top of the foam and cut out the shape of the flame. And once that is complete, we'll cut out some cardboard in the shape of that and attach it down the bottom there. Once that is done, then we can attach our black vinyl. I'm about to cut out the foam in the shape of this flame. Now, to save yourself a little bit of work, because tracing every little piece can be a little time consuming, especially if you've got many to do. So, I'm going to cheat a little bit. I've got some black paint. Now, this is all I have in the shed. Some heat-proof black. Probably be expensive for this, but that's not going to matter. Grab something just to weigh down your stencil over your foam. And you just want to give it a light mist. So the flatter stencil sticks on the foam, the better the edge is going to be. Trying to do this one-handed is a bit troublesome. Stick something else on there. There's a stencil. Now it gives us a line to cut out. Handy little tip, I hope that helps. We've got the foam cut out to the shape of the flames. Now, not everything's cut 100% perfect. That's not going to matter, because being foam, there's no real sharp defined edges. It's going to be a softer transition, so most of the awkwardness of the cuts should not actually follow through, which makes lives a lot easier. It's why I like it for the complex shapes. Now, to help us with positioning of the foam on the board itself, we're going to do the same trick, because obviously we probably don't want to mount it all the way to the side or over the top. So we want to get the stencil into the position that we're happy with. We've also got to make sure that we allow enough room for the next stencil. So once we have this hovered over the location that we're happy with for the finished product, we can do the same trick and spray with some paint just to give us a shadow to follow to glue the foam to the board. There we are. There's our guide to glue a foam over top. Not going to be 100% perfect, but it's going to be close enough that you shouldn't see the imperfections as we glue the vinyl on. Got the foam glued to the board now. Now mostly hit the marks, but it's close enough not to really have to worry. A couple bits like here, I might grab the knife and just open them up, because something as close as that, something that close together, probably won't show up too well in the vinyl. So I'll grab a sharp knife and I will just modify that a fraction. So I did use the heat gun to help set the glue on the foam and on the board, because you want it to set off a little bit. You don't want it such a extremely tight grip at the lightest touch, because as soon as you do that, you'll start tearing your foam. So if it goes off a little bit more, it gives you a little bit more ability to pull it back off if you're not too happy with the position it's set on. So if you just give it a light bit of heat, let it set off. You want to be able to touch it, and you don't want any glue to come off, and you don't want it to be overly sticky to the touch. You want a slight bit of tack, and that should be what you want to actually lay the foam on. Alright, I'm going to tidy up those, and then I'll cut out the Chevy stencil. We'll figure out where we're going to stick that one. Got the next logo cut out. Now it's a good idea just to put a few marks where you want to locate it and make sure you get the right way up. I was marking it before and did have it upside down for a moment, so it's a good trick to do, good habit to get into. Just give it a mark of where you actually want it to be before you actually permanently mount it. Now I'll figure that out. I have the cardboard cut and ready to go. I can glue this up, cut the vinyl out and glue that one up as well, and then we can start the process of wrapping the board. We've got the vinyl just loosely sat over top. Both sides are glued, so it is unlikely this cover would actually come off again, but it's a pretty even all the way around, so we don't need to. What we want to do from here, we want to get a bit of heat in the vinyl itself. Now this vinyl, and using this board and foam, usually air bubbles are not typically an issue, but they can still pose a bit of drama. So we want to try and work the vinyl out in a way that's going to help reduce the risk of air bubbles. So we're going to try start at the peak of the flame and work our way down to the edge of the board. And we really want to try press into the corners, into the edges of the foam and the cardboard, so we can really stick out this shape. Now we've got some heat. You can already see the vinyl is starting to mold itself into where the flames are. So we want to just gently feel where the start of the flames are and just work it in with our fingers. Alright, I'm going to hang up the camera and need 2 hands for this. Hopefully you can see that alright on camera. As you can see, we've got a nice little emblem there. Now you can go for a thicker cardboard if you want a more substantial, more noticeable logo there. But please note, the thicker you go, the more precise you have to be with your cutting. The more likely that you'll get imperfections is greater. So it's just overall less forgiving. I like to use a little tool like this with a rounded edge just to help work the vinyl into some of these tight corners. You can use your fingernail too, but sometimes I find a tool like this just helps that a little bit more. You can also use these to help define the edges of the flames a bit more. Now if you want the flames to have a tighter corner, you could either go to a cardboard or higher density foam, and that will give you more of a square edge. But the same again, your cuts will have to be a lot more exact because it is less forgiving, so keep that in mind if you're having a play with this. From here, I'm going to be flipping and notching the corners and wrapping around the board. Now if this was going into a hot rod I was working on, or an actual vehicle, I would typically leave it like this overnight, because this is where you can start getting your fingerprint marks into the foam if you start pressing down too hard. So if you let it sit overnight, it allows the glue to set and no longer be able to grab, because as soon as you start pressing on the foam, you can actually glue a fingerprint mark into the job. So if it's for a client or even your own project, you don't want fingerprints all over the car. So the thicker the foam, the more risky it is. A lot of the time, the little foam, you won't notice the fingerprints as much, but I would recommend, if this for an important project, I would leave it sit in this state overnight, just let the glue set, and just move on to another panel. So often when you're working on these on a project, you have more than one, so you can afford to put this to the side and start working on the next panel. Alright, I'll flip this, and I'm going to run over how I notch these corners so that we wrap it around the board without getting dog ears. I've explained the process on one of my previous tutorials. I think it's the simple car trim panel, I'm not sure. I'll link it up that corner, but I'm going to show you again in this video. Okay, first thing first, I'm going to even out all these edges. Don't necessarily need to trim up the edges to the exact sizes, but I like to. It makes everything a lot easier and a lot more even. And if you have thicker foam or foam overhanging the edges, this will keep the wrap around a lot more even when you're finishing off these panels. I like to trace the back of the board, so when I pull it around, I have a guide of how even and how much tension I'm pulling it around, and this can go a long way to making life easier. Now the way we want to chop the corners, a lot of people, they will just grab the scissors and cut the corner straight off like that. That's not what we want to do, because quite often you'll end up with dog ears and exposed foam in the corner. So that's not what we're going to do. So when you want to come out a couple millimeters from the point, and when you cut that pattern there, so that's the pattern we're going to be cutting in the corners. You can draw it or you can freehand it. I typically freehand it. I've done it a few times before, so no issue for me. But if it makes life easier for you, or it's your first time to do it, I would suggest drawing the pattern to start with and following your lines. So you want the line to start a couple of millimeters away from this corner here. You want enough room to actually stretch it around and make it around the corner. You don't want any exposed foam or exposed edges there. Again, that's the pattern we're going to be cutting. that's how we want all the corners to look like. So we can see it's about 5mm from the edge to the corners of these cuts. That's kind of where you want to aim for. So we'll be wrapping that around like so. So I'm going to cut every corner just the same. So now I've got all 4 corners cut out. I'm now going to glue it. So there's no need to glue the whole board. I'm just going to glue these border sections and then I'll be able to wrap it around. Now to make life easier, you can get a bit of heat in the vinyl in the corners. It's not absolutely necessary. The colder your climate is, the more necessary it becomes. But here, it's not very cold, it's about 25 degrees at the moment. But I still find it can make life a bit easier, just to give it a bit of heat before you start wrapping around. It can make it a lot easier just to hide the dog ears from your work. So you just want some outward pressure and stretch it over. Now you definitely don't want to pull too tight because you will tear it. And that is what you want that to look like. Now I like to use my thumb to put a bit of pressure and wrap that corner around. That forces the dog ears behind the job, behind the material, so that you can't actually see it on the finished product. Bit of pressure, pull it around and press it down. And just repeat the process again. As you can see, these little dog hairs here, if you're not careful, can end up on the outside of the work. So, with the right techniques, a bit of care taken, you'll get these behind the job and you won't see it on your finished product. Alright, then you just need to repeat the process 3 more times. Again, some tension away from the board, very light tension, pulling it up, out, and over. So the whole process, there's always tension on it. You'd never just want to just pull it straight over without any tension. As you can see, it does not pull the edge of the cut around the board. So you want to pull it out and swing it around, keeping tension on the corner the whole way. And once again, we'll put directly over. The corner is not over behind the material. So pull that back up, pulling tension, keeping the tension, swinging around, and squeeze it down. Now all the corners are pinned, and all the dog ears should be hidden behind the work. So I want to slip my finger under and press the corner. And then I'll pull some tension and fold the edge over. Trying to keep an even distance to the line we drew before. It's never going to be 100% perfect, but you want to get as close as you can. Again, press the corner, hide the dog ears, and pull and stretch around. There we have it. A custom handcrafted embossed automotive panel. There you go, with a bit of sun glare we can see that a little bit neater. It really is that easy. There's no magic to it. It's just a little bit of patience, a little bit of know-how, and away you go. Now you can see in this corner I've actually got a fingerprint. That's why I suggested before, if this is an important job for an important project, you stop before we wrap it around and we put it and let it sit overnight, and that will prevent those fingerprints. Sometimes you can heat up these fingerprints and they will release, but sometimes they're just there forever and there's nothing you can do about it. Okay, let's take this outside and take one final look at the final product. Lay this down. Look at that. There's no rocket science to it. Anyone can do it. It's just basic tools that is available at almost any hardware store. So give it a crack. Alright guys, that will do it for this episode. I hope you've enjoyed the video, learned something. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing if you've got anything out of it. Please give it a share, let someone else know about it if you think they will get value from it. And if there's any other videos you want me to make, please leave a comment below and we'll see what we can do. Until then, see you next time.